Among the remote villages of the Ecuadorian highlands lie the traces of thousands of years of human civilization. Dr. Florencio Delgado is one of Ecuador's foremost archaeologists and an expert in Andean culture and pre-Columbian civilization. He joins us today from Quito.
Welcome, Dr. Florencio Delgado. Welcome to Interviews from Quito. We are delighted you're here in our program talking about the topics of archaeology, anthropology. You are one of the major movements in archaeology in Ecuador, and I want to ask you what in your childhood, what made you think of archaeologists or become an archaeologist?
Hello, and thank you for your invitation. Well, I think being in a small little town in the middle of the highlands, going into the field and looking for some interesting things that in forms of ollitas or achitas, axes that we used to call, little by little awakened me this curiosity that I think most of the kids have. I never saw a movie while I was a kid. I live in Canton El Pan, near Paute, where no TV. I think I saw TV. I watched TV the first time when I was 12, probably. Then it wasn't out of that. It was more out of curiosity, out of seeing things and the small communities and using old stuff to cultivate land, et cetera, that made me wonder how our ancestors did it. And it was hard for us at that time. Could you imagine how hard it was for our ancestors? So I thought that was a lot of interesting stuff there to learn. Fortunately for me, that curiosity kept going through time, and I was at the right time and in the right place. And here I am, being an archaeologist.
Florencio, in order to provide a general background for our audience, tell us about the milestones that characterize Ecuador during the pre-Columbian period.
Yeah, the whole story about Ecuadorian prehistory has to be framed in terms of what happened in the rest of the New World. For a while, the New World was characterized by these these areas called nuclear areas, which was Mesoamerican Peru, which is supposed to be where civilization began. Everything was seen from there, and then supposedly everything that's around was it came from that, and so we were called intermediate area, which meant we were in between these two poles. And for a while, people thought that nothing happened in the intermediate area. Later on, archaeologists start finding that early agriculture, early pottery, early complexity of societies that became early chiefdoms, very interesting, very good technology to do crafting, craft specializations, very, very early. Ceramic is very, very early in Ecuador. We're talking about 3500 BC, in other words, 5000 AP. Mm-hmm. So all early developments occur in these tropical areas. Now there's exciting news coming from the other side of the highlands, from the upper Amazonian, Ecuadorian upper Amazonian, where there is interesting early 5000 BP stuff coming up, being dug by a group of French Ecuadorians. And later on, one of the interesting things that happened in the Ecuadorian early history is that never we had these huge societies, these imperial states that built most of their stuff on slavery in other people. Okay. You know, we sometimes you have the most sensible people admiring the Aztecs,
or the
Incas. But the Aztecs, for instance, you know, they will take the heart out of a living person.
Oh, the Mayas too.
because you were not an Aztec.
Of course.
So if you were part of the elite, you were good. But how about the rest of people that were enslaved? So the Incas, all of them, all of this magnificence is result of enslaving people. Here, we didn't have that much. We didn't have, Mother Teresa's. We had also conflict and people trying to get the best out of the other people. But because of the level of complexity of these societies, we didn't have these states. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons, and there is a lot of explanations why is that, but one of the explanations that a lot of archaeologists want to put forward is the fact that, here you have so much variety in terms of ecology. You have lots of valleys. You have, it's not like in Peru where you have these high mountains and then middle cities. Here you have different ecological zones, rivers, a lot of connection. And apparently for these societies, it was better to communicate to each other than go and conquer their territory. And so it is like the middle. It's like the peaceful pre-Columbian times, This is what it characterizes us. A lot of people are saying, but we are not a state. We didn't have a state. In Peru, look at this. Well, good that we didn't have a big state. That characterizes us, being this kind of peaceful area where lots of communities were working, exchanging, getting things from everywhere. You didn't need to go and conquer that people to get their fish. They're trading with you, and it's much better.
Florencio, could you tell us, recently archaeology was not a professional activity in Ecuador. Tell us about the beginnings of archaeology in Ecuador.
Okay, well, archaeology in Ecuador, as it happened in some European countries like 300 years ago, it started being hobby of rich people. People who had the time and the money, they will go down and excavate. In Ecuador, it was these rich people, and also there was people who were connected to the clero, priests, that had also good education. A while ago, they were the most educated in this. Even before Alfaro, for instance, the education, remember, was in the hands of the church, and so were the church and rich hacendados. We have to remember that here.
You said Alfaro. You said this is before 1908.
Yeah.
So the previous history. So you were talking 19th century.
Yeah, 19th century. Let's say the first who will start talking about ancient people here is basically Padre Juan de Velasco, Father Juan de Velasco. But Father Juan de Velasco was trying to hardly to give us a state as good as the Incas. You have to remember Ecuador is born from little pieces of everything. It's like from everywhere. So it needed a message to connect this growing nation with a past. And so he get us the Reino de Quito, which it's in the best sense is a fabula. But
when you say Reino de Quito, what year are we talking about?
We're talking about late 1700s, early 1800s.
Okay.
Yeah. So then later on, nothing happened here. So everybody's believing the Reino de Quito, that there is a bunch of populations from all over the country organized into Reino de Quito. And when the Incas came, basically they fought with the Reino de Quito. So, it's kind of trying to build a nation on basis on Quito. So if late 1800s, 1900s, appears here Archbishop González Suárez. And González Suárez didn't believe any of that. And so there was some controversy, but González Suárez, basically he didn't excavate. He mostly used the chronicles to to get his own idea, and he writes about the Cañaris, he writes about many groups. Late, almost 20th century, appears Jacinto Gijón y Caamaño. Jacinto Gijón y Caamaño is a rich guy. He's from a rich family. They have haciendas all over the place.
So he's an amateur archaeologist.
He's an amateur. He basically prepares himself, and he goes to his haciendas. He takes his Huasipungos, his Indians, and put them to excavate, and they built with that his own collection.
Okay.
So most of these guys were into collection building. The good thing about Gijón is that he doesn't stop there. He tries to give explanation of what's going on. One of the problems with him is the lack of connecting what he was excavating with the indigenous people he was exploiting.
Yes.
You know, it's like, no, these are different Indians. These are not these Indians. These are lazy, blah, blah, blah. These are...
And what happened after the 1920s and 1940s? Because it seems to be there's no archaeology very significant between 1940s, 50s, and 60s until the last 20 years, I believe.
Well, what happens is Gijón goes... when he was in Lima, he met Max Uhle.
Okay.
Max Uhle was famous, the famous German archaeologist working in Tiwanaku, working in lots of places in Peru, and then Gijón invites him to work here. Yes. And it starts a tradition of inviting people, not constructing schools, which is the same that's happening now, but that's another story. Basically, it's Gijón, Uhle, and in the 40s, 50s, it shifts towards Guayaquil.
Okay.
Then Emilio Estrada, a banker and a sportsman,
yes,
arrives, and he's an economist. He went to UPenn, rich people from the coast, people more into business. So you have the change from this feudal hacienda, rich guys from Quito, towards the most economic, and it has to do with the history of Ecuador. Like the people on the coast take over the economy, the whole country economies. So Estrada starts also building his collection. And he hires people. He goes to, when he was going into his yacht to the coast, he will stop in places, and then he will hire people, and then he will start excavating. Then he produced a bunch of books on that. And then he became famous because two people from the Smithsonian, Betty Meggers and Clifford Evans, showed up, and he shows them this Valdivia pottery. They found it so similar to the Homon pottery of Japan.
Okay.
And then they start working on this idea of that the Japanese,
we're here.
They came, they sailed, and then they got lost, they got here, and they taught people here how to make the pottery, and then the pottery apparently expanded all through the New World through Valdivia. I don't know if there's still people who believe that, but in the 50s, 60s, that was very popular.
And one of the reasons why many people come to Ecuador and South America is to buy these artifacts through the huaqueros. Huaqueros are the people who are digging in the lands against the law and sell it. Mm-hmm. As an archaeologist, how do you see that problem coming up? Is coming less or is more? And what should I do if someone comes and sells me a piece of pottery from the Inca period? What should I do about that? Should I give it back to the government? Should I take it or don't buy it? Or what should I do with it? What will you do with something like that happens all the time?
Well, we get into the trap here because a lot of people will tell you, I'm buying because it's already out. Mm-hmm. But then if you buy it, they'll go and get it more. Mm-hmm. I think that lately there is more engagement on the government towards stopping the illegal traffic. You can't take it out the country. Mm-hmm. Although I think that's the main problem. They only worry about taking out of the country, while inside is not seen as traffic if people are selling and buying. And this is the fundamental problem that archaeology remains have here. Honestly, for me, it doesn't matter whether the pieces are going out of the country or going out of the site. If it destroys the context, doesn't matter where it ends up. What people do, well, I think educated people with a lot of knowledge of what does do to archaeology, they probably won't buy it. Because, I mean, you can still buy copies if you wanted to have something. You don't need to have the original, you know. So I think it's a choice.
Tell us about your recent work. You've been teaching at the Universidad de San Francisco de Quito. You are putting different projects in Ecuador and all over South America. You've been invited to different symposiums of archaeology in the States and in Santiago de Chile. Last year you went to London, England, and you're becoming a very famous archaeologist and a very famous teacher. What can you tell a young student who become an archaeologist? What are you doing in your work? Can you tell us right now the most significant thing that you're doing as an archaeologist at this minute?
Well, I don't know. We love what we do and everything sounds great. Right now, we are, for instance, engaged into a project in Galapagos Islands. We are trying to see how humans are changing the environment of a supposedly pristine island. So with that, we wanted to know what's the human influence in the climatic change. So it's not about pottery, it's about resolving big problems. In Manabi, North Manabi, we're excavating early formative houses where we are finding interesting work on stone. Stone tablets, they have different figures. It can be early counting system, we don't know yet, but that's exciting. We are engaged into that too. We are also working in the Amazon, in the southern Amazon, doing some that's more like a contract archaeology. At USFQ, we have probably 3-4 projects ongoing. We engage with other colleagues from United States, from Canada, and it is an excited work. We need archaeologists. If every municipality here would have an archaeologist, we right now will need more than 200 archaeologists. We have none. A lot of people tell me, I wanted to be an archaeologist, but then I needed to eat. It is this whole idea that we probably put our money to do research. That's very far away from the truth. Mm-hmm. The matter of fact is that right now, I don't see any colleague in this country that doesn't have a job. So archaeology is an interesting way of doing things, but you have to have passion. This is not 8 to 4 work. It's a way of life. You marry archaeologists. Weekends you are in the field. You go to the symposiums, talk to your colleagues, write articles, try to get books out. And you know, if someone tells me, give us a talk in a small school or a community, calls and says to me, look, we wanted to know about our ancestors, but we don't have money. We put our students in this program we call community archaeology. We go to the communities and we share with them, we learn from them. And at the end of the day, they have a report, they have something that connect them with their ancestors. And we have had the best experience in the whole world that no university and no PhD can pay.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time, Florencio. Thanks for coming to Telesur, and we wish you well. We wish you a very successful career.
Thank you.
This has been Dr. Florencio Delgado, an archaeologist and with a PhD in archaeology and also great teacher at the University of San Francisco de Quito. He's doing different projects in South America, and we're really delighted to have you. And my name is Andy Sebastian. This is Telesur Interviews. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.